Spoiler warning. The following discussion will contain spoilers. We recommend checking out the movie first, then coming back to hang with us. But if you don't care about that, glad to have you here. Alright everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Real Review. My name's Kevin.
And I'm John.
And we are The Real Movie Guys. It's March, so that can only mean one thing. Real March Madness. It's a tale as old as time, Pixar Versus Disney. In a brawl to end it all, we have selected 8 films from each studio. A total of 16 movies will battle head-to-head for superiority. On today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at Disney's The Lion King. Lion Prince Simba and his father are targeted by his bitter uncle, who wants to ascend the throne himself. Now, John, I vividly remember going to the theaters and seeing Lion King as a kid. As young as I was at the time, I vividly remember that theater experience, and you know what? I think it's always stuck with me. It's going to be hard to talk about. Again, we've said in many of these, like, golden age Disney movies, we run out of things to say. I feel like the animation's beautiful, the character work, the voices, the song. I'm going to say all that again in this review, too. Spoiler alert. But at the same time, it has to be just admired how amazing this is. Disney took one of the most famous Shakespeare stories that no one wants to read. They took Hamlet and they said, hey, let's put that in a lion movie and animate it. Sure enough, they did, and here you go.
Box office gold, baby.
Box office gold, baby. Lion King, from the second it starts to the second it ends, is perfectly paced, animated, scored. This movie, I would say, is one, if not the best animated movie of all time.
And I would say the best animated movie of all time.
Why is that, John? Now, what specifically speaks out to you that makes this the greatest animated movie of all time?
Well, just everything from the music to, like, the story that it tells. And, like, the way I feel like this movie can put you in a place almost like where everybody feels like they understand what's going on and how you can see going through your own life, like, these things going through.
I won't even say that. I'm gonna turn that around a little bit. I'm not even gonna say that. This movie's escapism in its purest form for me. At the beginning of this movie, we start with a big yell, and we have the sun rising. You see the animals grazing. They're going to this big celebration of the newborn Simba being brought into life, and you feel like you're in this world. It's almost like from the second this film starts, you're invited into this like secret world of animals where they have this whole hierarchy and they have this majesty to them. You feel like you're part of this world. The scenery is so flush and lush, and you can tell there's like a history with these creatures. You feel like you're part of it almost. From a viewer standpoint, you're watching this and everything just feels easily relatable to you in that aspect. It's a pure sense of escapism from the real world.
Well, they also do what gets you into this movie. Mufasa's voice, played by James Earl Jones, is just so, like, when Mufasa speaks, you listen. He's got that presence of, I am the real king.
It's funny because James Earl Jones is known as playing one of the best heroes, one of the worst villains. He played Darth Vader. He embodies that majesty, that line of these lions that they're trying to portray in this film, that he's the king. And then opposite to him, you have maybe the animation's greatest villain of all time, Scar. Scar is wonderfully, twistedly voiced by the amazing Jeremy Irons, who pulls such a backstabbing performance out of this character, so he's so damn likable, but you hate him so goddamn much at the same time. He has just such a natural affinity to this character that it leaps off the screen at you. And both of them do that. Those two performances really heavily carry this film.
Don't turn your back on me, Scar.
Oh no, Mufasa. Perhaps you shouldn't turn your back on me.
My favorite Disney character, I feel like, is in this movie. And it's not one that, like, everybody will enjoy or everybody likes. But Rafiki has always been, like, my favorite after seeing this movie. Just the things that he says and, like, his charisma and everything about him.
Well, I know who you are. Shh, come here. It's a secret.
It's funny because I love the way this story works, because yes, it is the story of Hamlet, but it's such an amazing hero's journey. You have Simba, who's born into this position of royalty, and then Mufasa dies. Scar kills his father and says,
Run away and never return.
and he runs off and he's trying to escape his past, but in the meantime, Nala, who's his love interest as a child, comes back and says, hey, we need you, come back and save us. You use Rafiki in this aspect as that shaman-esque character who's guiding the hero through the mystic points, right? He's trying to garner him back into saying, like, this is your destiny, you were chosen to do this, you can't escape. He's such a cool character to utilize for that, because like you said, he's fun, he's goofy, he's a little silly, but at the same time, he's kind of a serious and important, integral character to the plot. You know, I think some of the performances are maybe so-so. Home Improvement was a big show at the time. We had Jonathan Taylor Thomas voicing young Simba, a little cringy at times.
You can't do anything to me.
Technically they can. We are on their land.
But Zazu, you told me they're nothing but slobbering, mangy, stupid poachers.
Ixnay on the Upinstay.
It's funny because that's not even actually him singing. There's someone else actually singing because he couldn't sing. And then you have Matthew Broderick. It's kind of like a wet plank. There's a lot in his movies. But in this movie, I think this is probably one of his best performances.
You can't change the past. You said you'd always be there for me. But you're not. And it's because of me. It's my fault. It's my fault.
I'll love and hate him for when he was in the Godzilla movie that came out in the late 90s. Oof, that's a lot of fish, as he likes to say in that movie. It's funny, too, because he actually sings his own lines, because Matthew Broderick has an amazing singing voice. Mr. Ferris Bueller really knows how to sing at times. Does a really good job with that. Then we have Nathan Lane coming in with one of the greatest comedy performances ever of being Timon. He really steals the show for me, and especially with the camaraderie he has with Ernie Sabella, who plays Pumbaa. When you see those two together, they have such a good comedic chemistry together.
Kid, what's eating you?
Nothing. He's at the top of the food chain. The food chain! So, where you from?
On screen, it's gold.
One part in particular that always gets me about, like, those two, it's the one part where they're in the cage and he goes,
What do you want me to do? Dress and drag and do the hula?
he starts doing like the hula dance to like try to help them escape. It almost just tells you how important these characters really are.
Hakuna Matata literally is an anthem for life for a lot of people of our generation, and even to now, I think a lot of people just resonate with that song. And while maybe it's not like the best composed song, I think its messaging and its catchiness just really relate to people in a lot of ways. And you wouldn't have that if you didn't have Timon and Pumbaa. Their voice actors, they carry what that song is and what it represents. Is there maybe an argument to be made about their humor being a little too immature? Maybe at times, you know, it is mostly fart jokes.
Tell ya, Pumbaa, this stinks.
Oh, sorry.
Not you. Them.
Pumbaa's expense, you know, fat Pumbaa farting all the time. It is what it is. He's a warthog. What'd you expect? It's low-hanging fruit, sure, but at the same time, it works in the context of this movie. No problems with it whatsoever. I think it really adds to the comedy.
I always thought they were balls of gas burning billions of miles away.
Pumbaa, with you, everything's scarce.
The one thing that everybody always remembers in this movie is just the part when Mufasa dies. Though I've seen this movie millions of times, it's always still in my head where Scar throws him off the mountain. I can always see it in my head, and each time that part comes up, you're always thinking to yourself, here it comes.
It's foreboding, for sure.
Yes.
You know it's coming. When you don't know what's coming the first time, you're surprised and heartbroken, but then after that, it just breaks your heart over and over again. And that's one of the strongest compliments you can give this movie, is that it's so emotionally touching. And yeah, the whole movie is to an extent, but that scene in particular just stands with you from the way they animated it. And I'm happy because it goes into a lot of things I want to talk about between the color palette that they use for that scene. This movie is bright and beautiful. They capture Africa like nothing I've ever seen in my entire life. They really capture the essence of what Africa is. And then you contrast to this really dark, misty, sandy, dirty scene of the gorge where they're stuck. You have the stampede, which at the time, that's an amazing feat in animation. Having a herd of wildebeest stampede using a blend of like a little bit of CG with the blend of hand-drawn animation hasn't aged a day. That looks phenomenal. You know, I've given Disney a little bit of grief with some of their CG that they've used in films. This was probably like the perfect execution of what they're trying to go for. Using CG to enhance a scene. Using that digitally drawn animation to just enhance the product a little bit, maybe a little more than you could do with your average hand-drawn style. That this movie brings depth and forebodingness with, again, the shadow usage. When you see Mufasa jump up for the first time and he's like clawing his way, they pull back the camera and it's like a dark shadow clawing up the side of the cliff. His hands, he's like in pain and struggling. Then you got Scar comes there and you're like, oh no, it's no good now. Puts his paws on him, whispers into his ear,
Long live the
throws him off. You just see him fall into this stampede. This movie has a lot of really well executed camera work. It's not something I feel like we speak about too much in animated film, but cinematography, as much as it's important to live action movies, it's just as important in animated films. I think Lion King really knows how to capture those moments that maybe in context might not have been as memorable if we didn't have those perfect shots, like the stampede scene, the opening scene, so beautifully shot. Like, I don't think you'll ever forget it once you see the opening of this movie. It's ingrained in your memory. Hakuna Matata, like I said, yeah, the characters are part of it, but you needed that cinematography. When you see Simba aging over the log as they're going forward, you see him growing up with them. They had an eye for what they wanted to tell, and they weren't afraid to show it in the camera lens. So where do we go from here? The main thing I think you really need to go to is the music of this film. Not just the amazing songs, but the score itself. It's controlling your emotions. I feel like they have strings attached to my heart, and each of those notes is like pulling one up and down as we go along. We've had a lot of these up until this point. Scar's Be Prepared song is the best villain song ever crafted, in my opinion. And the reason I say that is for how dark it really is. Yeah, I mean, there's the obvious, right? You have Scar being the villain and giving this villainous almost speech at the time where you can even say maybe he's not singing so much as he's kind of like doing the talk singing, but it's so memorable with the flashes of the green flames flying up and the steam coming out of the ground as he's moving forward. And even darker, you have these visuals of almost a certain German army, hyenas almost marching in line, him dominating over them, almost World War II imagery. It's really haunting. Just what they're going for is something I would say almost unheard of in a Disney movie, just how dark they're really willing to go with this song.
It's almost like he's just like rallying up the troops too. Like, you see it and you just know, like, from right there after that song, even if you hate Scar the most, it kind of gets you pumped up to be like, kill the king, like almost that way, you know?
Again, Jeremy Irons' performance really brings this to life if it wasn't for him, because you know he's kind of weak and meager. He's no Mufasa. He's like elegantly charming and dark at the same time, and he knows how to use words to manipulate people around him. And he's got these hyenas all flustered and ready to go. He knows how to rally the minds and the hyenas to get them on his side so he can overtake and become ruler. And then once he gets it, he's like losing control. The world's falling apart. Typical villain. You gotta love it.
Yeah, definitely.
What am I going to do with him?
He'd make a very handsome throw rug.
Zazu.
And just think, whenever he gets dirty, you could take him out and beat him.
Now, John, is there a certain song that really stands out to you? What would you say is your favorite song?
I Just Can't Wait to Be King.
Now, what about that song really stands out to you? Go into a little bit of detail for me. What brings it to life for you?
Not only just the words of the song, but the way that it's played out, almost kind of like an ironic song. Him kind of like showing how he's going to become king. Like, he doesn't have any clue what it's like to be a king. Yeah, he just thinks that he's all powerful and mighty and everything. And how, like, the song just goes so along with it.
It's funny. He has that childlike arrogance. I feel like we all have at some point in our life where, like, we're going to do better. We're not going to make the mistakes, or we're going to make this world better and be all powerful. It's one of the few times they really, like, kind of change the design overall. Like, we never leave, like, go into, like, a fantasy world or anything like that. We're always set in Africa and what's going on. At that time, though, we're transported to this, like, cartoony character world of brightly colored animals and crazy situations and everything like that. And I think that perfectly mirrors that childlike arrogance that they're going for. Oh, look how great and wonderful everything is for me. I'm the best at everything I do. And you have Zazu complaining the whole time, telling him it's not going to work like that. Stop it. You have to really think about what you're doing. It really comes to life in so many ways with that song.
I beg your pardon, madam, but get off! Simba? Nala!
My favorite, even more so than the wildebeest scene that gives you like a tense indigestion moment in your heart there. You can't really shake it. The scene that everyone remembers is the scene where Simba sees his father in the stars. Where he has that vision with Rafiki and he's sent out and he sees his father and he says,
Remember who you are. You are my son and the one true king. Remember.
Find me another more classic Disney moment. I love how it parallels the earlier scene when Simba's young and he's playing with his father and they're talking about the kings of the past that live up in the stars. Look to them to guidance, and you have to be a wise king, and you're going to make mistakes, but you have to rise above it and be the leader. And when he's lost at this point in the movie, he doesn't know whether he's coming back. He doesn't know what to do. And just that grand vision is so powerful and moving, just with the soundtrack layering this almost otherworldly majesty when he sees Mufasa. And again, gotta give it to James Earl Jones's voice, because without his voice, those lines would not have the weight that they have, because I would say it's one of the most iconic scenes in Disney animation history. It's back to that emotional beat that we were talking about. Like, yeah, we have the ultimate sadness scene in any animated movie that people remember, but I think you also have one of the most uplifting scenes in an animated movie, to where when you think you've lost hope, it's not over just yet. If you've made mistakes, you can go back and fix them, live up to them, own them, make a change in your life. An understated theme, I think, for this movie. I think it resonates with so many people out there that whether you know it or not, it's in the back of your mind. But I think we're at that point, though, we're going to give our final score. I'm going to give The Lion King an A+.
I just hear that name and I shut up. Mufasa. Ooh. Do it again. Mufasa. Ooh. Mufasa. 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 Ooh, it tingles me.
I'm surrounded by idiots.
The Lion King, I would argue, it's up there as one of the greatest, if not the greatest, animated film of all time. It does everything you wanted to do in an animated movie. It's beautiful, breathtaking, incredible music, memorable characters, emotional beats, hit for hit. When you're watching it over and over again, it's almost like you could wish you could watch it for the first time again. But in some way, you kind of are, because you're experiencing it all over again. Even though you know it by heart, you know it scene by scene, Lion King is just that damn good. John, where do you stand with this film?
I think you're going to be very shocked on my opinion on this film. My rating is an A+. I feel like this is definitely my favorite Disney movie. Maybe my favorite animated movie of all time. This movie just did so many things right, touched so many feelings, and maybe it was just the time it came out. But something with this movie has always related to me, always remember it. It's absolutely stunning movie.
It's one of those movies where, should you watch it in your childhood, does it mean more to you? I think there's something that can be said of that. I think when you're a child and you watch this for the first time, as an adult, yeah, you can definitely appreciate everything. It just hits you somewhere special when you're a child. It's an experience that you just won't ever forget. Is it nostalgia that really winds this movie going forward? I don't think that's the case in this instance. I think this movie just really is that well crafted. I've seen a lot of movies over my life, and I find very few that come close to matching this. Even Disney can't match it. They tried to do a quote-unquote live action one, which is another discussion to be had if that's even considered live action, when they're all animated. Sorry, not meaning to rant there. They tried to do it again, and they couldn't do it as good. Films of all time. Ratatouille, good luck to you, buddy. Seriously, good luck. John, where can the people find us at home?
You could find us over on YouTube at The Real Movie Guys on YouTube. We're over there. You can like our channel, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Let us know in the comments some of your favorites, some of the things you guys like, dislike. Tell us some ideas of what you guys want to see coming up on this upcoming year and channel. Let us know. You can also let us know over on Twitter at The Real Movie Guy on Twitter. Follow us over there. Let us know over there your opinions on things and stuff. You could also follow us on Instagram, at The Real Movie Guy on Instagram. You can also find us on many podcasting platforms such as...
Yes, for your listening pleasure, we are also available in podcast format: iTunes, Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcast, Overcast, Breaker, Radio Public, and Pocket Casts. Be sure to give us a listen at any of those fine places. If you already are right now, hey, really appreciate it. Just search Real Movie Guys, we should pop right up. Thank you again all so much for joining us for this episode of The Real Review. My name's Kevin. That guy over there, he is John. We are your Real Movie Guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. The battle rages on as Real March Madness, Disney versus Pixar continues. We'll catch you next time.
See ya!